In the mid-1990s, Universal was building Islands of Adventure, their second Orlando theme park, meant to compete with Disney World, and they wanted a land based around superheroes. Naturally, they reached out to DC Comics, the most popular comic universe at the time, but the deal didn't go through, and in '94, Universal signed with their second choice, Marvel, creating Marvel Superhero Island. Then in 2009, Disney bought Marvel. In the coming years, Marvel was taken from the second fiddle to DC to the largest media franchise in the world. And Disney wanted to feature Marvel at their theme parks, but unfortunately, because of Universal, Disney couldn't bring these characters to their parks in Disney World. Now Marvel is caught between these two companies, and I respect both of these companies. I mean, they fluctuate a bit, but I do respect both of them. They're the innovators of the industry. They've made amazing rides with these characters. But if they weren't fighting over this IP, we could possibly have even more. If not for Disney, then Universal could have created more Marvel rides in the future, and if not for Universal, Disney could have brought innovative Marvel rides to their main theme park headquarters. Sometimes I think I want to visit that alternate timeline where Universal had made their deal with DC, and then these two theme park companies, the innovators of the industry, wouldn't be competing against each other for one superhero universe. They'd be competing against each other with the two largest superhero universes in the world, instead of being severely restricted by trying to share. It would create competition, pushing them to be greater and create immersive, innovative rides, creating a possible renaissance of superhero attractions. But instead, we live in a world where Universal and DC split ways, and in our timeline, DC's park rights were given to Six Flags, where they are to this day. You saw the title of this video, you know what my thesis is. DC has more potential than Six Flags can do with it. They make good roller coasters, sure, and sometimes they get a little creative with it. I want to focus on the positive first, but roller coasters are an entirely separate industry. I mean, they're not. They're not an entirely separate industry. Can you tell that I'm riffing? They're not an entirely separate industry, but the metric of what a good roller coaster is different from other more immersive theme park rides, which Six Flags doesn't do. With a roller coaster, the most you can do is onboard audio, and that's the first thing that comes to mind, but Six Flags sometimes does some creative things, like the new Aquaman Power Wave at the very least features water, that's cohesion between the IP and the coaster itself. Sometimes they have decorations like a statue of Batman or a Batmobile that's sitting there or the Bat computer. But it's very limited, and it's nowhere near the level of queue creativity that you could see with DC from the bigger theme park companies, like theme park companies, Disney and Universal. And I guess the last thing I want to say that's good is that they call their line skipper Flash Pass. That's something, like the Flash. They use him for that. You know, that's fair. I don't blame them for that. That's cool. But let's start here. These entrance facades suck. They take the comic book approach, but you know who does better at this exact style? Marvel Superhero Island. They have it where there's like comic book cutouts, but it's the same style, but there's so much more effort into it, and that's not even the complicated part. That's not a ride or anything especially intricate. That's just the facades. That's just what it looks like from the outside. And this is just flat. They do have some facades and recreations of these generic buildings, but they look pretty poor quality and dirty and not upkept, as all of Six Flags is, which frankly I don't think is what this deserves. But I'll admit, the fact they have something like this at all, with these in-universe buildings like Clark Kent's apartment and all that, is pretty impressive. It's more than I honestly would have expected with Six Flags. Possibly the best thing that Six Flags has done with the DC characters is Justice League Battle for Metropolis, which is actually a pretty good shooting gallery dark ride. I was genuinely surprised when I saw how good it was, considering what I usually expect from Six Flags. And you might be expecting me to say, but, and then delve into reasons why Battle for Metropolis still isn't good enough. But honestly, it does work against my argument. The thing is, this is the only thing I feel Six Flags has that has properly utilized these characters. And part of me thinks DC, it might not be fair to say that they aren't doing as much with DC as Disney and Universal do with their Marvel attractions, because DC can be more difficult to work with, being that it has less characters that are in the public conscience currently. I definitely know more about Marvel than I do about DC, but the thing is, Marvel Superhero Island was made when Marvel was less popular than DC. It only has 4 rides, and one of them is a coaster painted green, one of them is a teacup ride, and one of them is a drop tower. But the fourth one is extremely innovative, the greatest dark ride of all time. 25% of Universal's Marvel rides, from a time before Marvel was the media giant it is innovative and spectacular. Can that be said of 25% of Six Flags DC rides? And Disney hasn't done as much with Marvel by the nature of their deal, but I'd say that all of it is at least to the quality that we would expect. They're not all great. I know that there's that one Star Tours style simulator themed to Iron Man, and that's just kind of what it is. And to be fair, Ant-Man and the Wasp Nano Battle is just kind of a very stagnant shooter dark ride. But Web Slingers, well, it's a controversial ride, and some people don't like it, but it is innovative. It is quality. It's more quality than anything Six Flags has put out. Both of the Guardians of the Galaxy rides are great. I don't think it's fair to say that just because the DC characters aren't as popular in the modern day as the Marvel characters, that stuff like this couldn't be done with them. Warner Brothers Movie World in Dubai is an indoor theme park that naturally has a lot of DC representation. Movie World has the advantage of being indoors, which makes theming a little easier, but suffice it to say, it creates much better immersive areas, decorating the walls as a decrepit Gotham. They have a Scarecrow flat ride. It's just a flat ride themed to Scarecrow, but it's executed so much better because of its surroundings. There's touches like artificial wear and tear that make it look like a device that Scarecrow would actually build and come up with. Audio before the ride starts features Scarecrow saying, "This is an experiment in terror." It's a diegetic ride. It may be a flat ride, but this is Aeronautica landing levels of flat ride theming. I can't say for certain because I haven't been to the United Arab Emirates, but I think the whole idea behind this land is this is a carnival taken over by the Joker and Gotham's villains. They even have this Joker funhouse mouth. This is great and seems like such an obvious idea. Has Six Flags ever done anything like this? They have, but I think between these two versions, one is clearly better. Maybe it's just my personal tastes. Batman Night Flight features a recreation of Wayne Tech. The ride uses a robot arm system, similar but not the same as Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. In the same way that PlayStation's D-pad isn't the same as Nintendo's D-pad because it has that X over the middle. What I mean is it's basically the same kind of ride. It, quite literally, is a universal quality Batman ride. Aside from the Gotham City area, they also have a full Metropolis/Justice League area. Just look at this. Their version of the Hall of Justice is much more ornate. They have fully themed food service, they have a flying theater Green Lantern ride, a 360 Superman film, and they have a Justice League Dark ride on par with Battle for Metropolis. This is still an indoor theme park, but if this isn't the best indoor theme park I've ever seen. I don't need to explain further, right? Even if there isn't much true innovation present, they did it. They did this. An immersive DC land with high-quality attractions. It's amazingly designed and shows the potential of DC and theme parks, a potential that Six Flags can't reach. Now, Warner Brothers made this park in partnership with Miral, I think I'm pronouncing that right, a company in Abu Dhabi. But the point of showing you this is to show what's possible with DC. We could have this, but instead we have this. I've said amusement parks can be greater, as in amusement parks being like Cedar Point and Six Flags in comparison to theme parks like Disney World and Universal. They can't reach those levels completely, but they do have the possibility to be greater, and I'm a full advocate for them doing more. But having a big IP won't elevate the amusement park experience as much. With Universal, you're coming to experience Nintendo or Harry Potter. Disney, you're coming to experience Star Wars and Pixar and all their other timeless characters. Do you really think people are coming to Six Flags because they love Batman so much they just need to ride a roller coaster painted black and yellow and buy a couple of keychains? Not that they wouldn't get anything out of it. It's still cool to see the Hall of Justice recreated and a Batmobile, but that's not what's drawing people to Six Flags. They're a regional amusement park focused on roller coasters. The people who come to a Six Flags mainly come because they're locals or it's their closest theme park. Even if they lived closer to a Cedar Fair, they'd go there instead. Even though Cedar Fair doesn't have the rights to a multi-billion-dollar comic book universe. They might prefer it even, with their parks being cleaner and offering a better experience. Even though they're the same company now. If Six Flags didn't have DC, it wouldn't make their parks any worse. They'd be the same. You'd have to cut out the dark rides, but everything else could just get a new coat of paint and be the same thing. The thing is, they won't do that, because so many of their rides are themed to DC, and it would cost a lot of money just to renovate them to remove the theming. Other than that, there's really no value to them holding it, because there's not even a benefit to others not having it by them having it. Because Universal is tied to Marvel, the contract states they can't use a competitor, and Disney would never want DC in the first place, they have Marvel as well. Cedar Fair, maybe you're like, we don't want Cedar Fair or SeaWorld or Hershey Family Parks to have it, but it barely matters, because one, Cedar Fair is you now. You're the same now. And those other companies can't steal your market either. Your target audience is the people that are close to you. That's where you get your market. They can't take that away. And frankly, maybe one of them would do more with it than you. Maybe they could use the brand and create better, more unique DC experiences that would draw people in and get DC fans to come. But you're not going to lose your main audience to them. Your main audience is locals. Amusement parks can change for the better. And they are. I talked about Aeronautica Landing and Adventureport. Cedar Fair's team is in charge of these parks now, and they have the DC rights. Maybe they'll do something better with it. Create more engaging lands. I don't know how they'd approach it, because they've never done something like this before. I said Aeronautica Landing is great because it has this cohesive theme. But I don't know whether they do something like that, or do things that are still like this. Maybe things would just be as they are now. And maybe Cedar Fair will start repainting coasters in their parks and slapping superhero names on them. Even loving Aeronautica Landing, I don't think they're ready to utilize DC to its fullest, and won't be for many years. My expectations are lowered because I know who they are. I'm not expecting Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man level quality. But maybe we could see something more like Aeronautica, where all the rides are related to the property, choosing thematically appropriate ride types that are decorated in ways that have some level of fit, and placed in an area that fits the aesthetic, rather than just being various flat rides painted the heroes' colors and with their logos on them. Look at Aeronautica again. Every ride has planes or plane parts, and it looks good. It looks somewhat real, believable, within your suspension of disbelief. I think it would be better if you tied it into a strict location like the Batcave. Or if you must, do a whole Justice League area, but that would be harder to pull off. And best case scenario, absolutely best case scenario that I could see even being slightly plausible would be something like this. This is Rookburg. It's a themed area at Phantasialand in Germany. It's a steampunk area with its main coaster called Fly running through the entire area. It might break immersion a little to have a coaster running through an area, but no matter how immersive a land is, you need to suspend disbelief to a certain degree. And the benefits of this layout, with both the wow factor and visual appeal of it running through the buildings, as well as all the kinetic energy it has, dissuades much concern I have for this concept being applied to DC. Imagine a coaster weaving through dark buildings to make a Gotham City area. At Rookburg, Fly is the only ride in the area, with the hotel and food being the rest of it. But I think that in a best case scenario, even Cedar Point or Six Flags could pull off a light version of this concept and still probably find ways to integrate flat rides into the area. The only thing is, I know they don't really make this many buildings, but at the very least, Six Flags has made building facades before. In the setting of Gotham, these buildings wouldn't need to be that much more than decorated grim warehouses that can house flat rides or small indoor coasters. I think something like this is possible. Obviously, these are just random ideas, and I make them far more simple than they would be. And I'm assuming these would be approaches to new DC lands and not based on lands that already exist. I'm not thinking about where these would go at all. But if the underwhelming Crossroads can be converted into Aeronautica, I think somewhere in between the two possibilities I've listed can come to be. It still seems a bit far-fetched, but I think the people running this new merged company are moving in a positive direction. Cedar Fair's team makes quality areas, and Six Flags at least has made some attempts at immersion. Maybe the DC brand will finally be well utilized in theme parks, because no one else is going to take DC away, so this new Six Flags is the only one who can deliver. Or maybe I'll see you in a couple years when Blue Streak is repainted and called Polka Dot Man. We'll have to see. If you want to hear more about superhero theme park attractions, might I suggest this video where I talk about Avengers Campus and what makes a good e-ticket. Anyway, bye.